Welcome into Behind the Wheelhouse. You're on with J and J. I'm John. This is Justin. We've got a great guest today, a company that's been around for 44 years. Mark Walker, CEO of Transland. How you doing today?
I am great today. What a pleasure it is to be with both of you and talk about my favorite subject,
What would that be?
moving freight down America's highways.
That's right. Talk about trucking. That's what we love it.
Yeah.
Every time I've tried to get out of it, it just reels me back in. So, Mark, tell us about yourself. How did you get into trucking? How did you get to where you are today?
Great question. I like to tell people that I was born into trucking because, frankly, my dad was in the trucking business when I was born, working for an LTL company. And then he started this company after about 25 years in the business, working for other companies. And it was probably the career I least wanted as I graduated college. So I kind of fell into it when I took early retirement 13 years ago. And we had some transitions in our family business. And my parents asked me to kind of step in and get involved. And it didn't take long for me to figure out why they liked it so much and why it was in their blood, because it was neat people. Just love the challenge of it, something different every day. And I've been I've been doing this for the last 13 years, and my wife and I bought the company 7 years ago, and it's been a great ride for our entire Walker family for a long time.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, before we got on, you were talking about your family business. Could you tell us that story again and where, how it was kind of where it was started, where you're located and how many trucks you're running and where you run at and everything?
Yeah, happy to. So we're super proud that we're part of Route 66, the mother road
That's it.
in America, as us truckers kind of named it many years ago, and we're celebrating its centennial year this year. So
I didn't
100
know
years,
that.
100 years of having Route 66, and the birthplace where it was named was here in Springfield, Missouri,
That's
and
right.
that's where we're based. And so beginning,
It's trivia. Justin, I'm going to test you on that later.
yeah,
Yeah, and I actually knew
it's
that.
great stuff.
Yeah, I
You
actually
can
did
fact
know
check
that.
me, and I'll probably be 80% right on some of these things. But our first office, when mom and dad started the company in 1982, we were located on Route 66 in Springfield, across from the Zenith Electronics television plant.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
were in a tourist court, one of those old kind of tourist motel places that, was kind of each little cabin by itself and a string of them kind of in a semicircle or in a square or whatnot. And we had one of those. We had, one truck, three people, and we took piggybacks off the railroad, kind of part of an operation that was based in Kansas City. And that was 44 years ago. And today we're 180 trucks strong and 220 people working for the company. And
Wow.
my
That's great.
Wow.
my dad said it wasn't supposed to get this big, and I told him that was his fault.
That just means you guys are doing something right and you just won an award. Is that right?
Well, we have been really honored to have been selected as the best fleets to drive for the past 5 years, 5 consecutive years. And so it's a very driver-centric award. Drivers actually nominate us as a company, and then they are surveyed as to how they feel about how their experience with Transland. And so about 108 companies were nominated this past year. Only 20 are selected as the best fleets to drive for, and there's about 7 or 8 that have been doing this for a long time. They're in the Hall of Fame. But it's a pretty exclusive deal. We're super proud of it, and it's really all based around what's our culture around making this a great place for drivers to work.
Yeah, go into that a little bit about your
Yeah.
culture. You've seen multiple cycles, regulation shifts, tech waves, driver shortages, turnover, high turnover. For, a lot of people that get into this industry from the outside, they struggle with trucking because it's not consistent. A lot of it's out of their control. So how have you, stayed true to all that and made it through?
John, it is a challenge every day to kind of stay on the pathway that your core values are designed to keep you kind of guided. When I started with the company, we created some core values, and we came up with 6 of them. And that was the kind of the bedrock of the culture that we wanted to create. And most of those core values kind of started from just how the employees observed my parents and their leadership style and their role. Things like honesty and integrity. Safety is always a core value for trucking companies, and certainly ours.
Right.
But things like ethical practices. Dad's approach to business was treat people the way you'd like to be treated, treat your customers the way they want to be treated. And when you do that, good things happen. And so these core values that we've created kind of helped us on this pathway of, when drivers can just walk into your office anytime they want, be part of the conversation, they're part of the team, they're not their own little group of employees that are off there by themselves. They are part of our structure. And I think that helped create this trust factor. Trust and respect. If you don't have those in business, I don't think you're going to last very long. And we worked really hard to build this core of trust, if you will. And I think our customers are recognizing it, certainly. And I would hope that's one of the reasons why drivers continue to nominate us for something like Best Fleets.
Now, I would say, being in the industry as long as I have, and John would probably agree, getting that kind of nomination alone, winning it, is realistically remarkable in my opinion, because I talk to drivers all the time. None of them are ever happy. They don't ever take any of the blame themselves. It's always the trucking company. I mean, it's just, I could write a book of the excuses or reasons. So to have drivers nominate you, and then, as you said, go through a checklist or whatever to get you to the top 20, you're doing something right. And I wished other companies would model, that. And what you're saying is very simple sounding. Drivers first, being an ear to listen, admit when you're wrong, fix things. Why do so many trucking companies have a problem with that? Because, like I said, you didn't come up with this great plan that is hard to do. You just use common sense in a way.
Well, I certainly like to think it's common sense. And I learned a long time ago that just keep it simple. And that's what Dad's philosophy was too. You don't have to overcomplicate this thing. When you treat people with respect, it's contagious. That's really what we built. And I found out that you didn't have to raise your voice to solve problems. When we encouraged
I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah. But when the leaders of our business model the behavior that we want all employees to have, particularly our drivers, and we learned real quickly, when you open the doors, you let drivers come in and sit down at an office desk with you, all of a sudden they model the behavior that you expect them to model. They rise to the level of whatever standard you're setting. And they just kind of do it intuitively. It's kind of instinct. And it's really not me. I'm super proud of how our entire team, particularly the leaders, but how they've modeled just how we handle conflict resolution, how we handle problem solving. I mean, we've got more problems than you want, right? Because we're in trucking, and so it's for me, it's how well do you deal with the problems? And because I'll admit, in orientation with drivers, man, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to do something you don't like. What I ask you is, give us a chance to make it right. Give us a chance to tell you why we do the things that we do.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to just communication. I mean, just communicate. Like you said, it's how you handle the problem. There's always going to be problems, but how do you handle it? I want to talk about something. There's always this tension between moving fast to hire with carriers and making sure you're hiring the right person. Talk about your process, your hiring process a little bit, especially for drivers who may be interested. How do you balance speed and safety at scale? And also, what is the real risk today? Is it missing out on a good driver or letting the wrong one slip through? Which is a bigger risk?
we're influenced a little bit by some just some I think management philosophy, but part of it is a book that we subscribe to called The Ideal Team Player. So humble, hungry, and smart. People smart, humble. And it kind of makes sense what humble and hungry and smart are, but when we screen prospective employees, including drivers, we look for those things. Are they humble about their driving career? Are they accurate and authentic about their driving career? How often do they tell you one story and you do a little bit of a small screen background check and all of a sudden, well, it just doesn't quite check out. So that's more than a red flag for us. But we really look for, do they have passion for what they're doing? Are they just job hopping? Have they been to a bunch of places, or have they had a good tenure somewhere, and just for whatever reason they need a different environment, they need a new opportunity?
Are you doing what you're supposed to do in an interview for any other position? Probably a lot of your corporate office positions. Or are you hiring just to get numbers in the door that match your safety standards?
So I think it's always been this way, but definitely in today's environment, if you want your turnover rate to be sky high, yeah, just try to get numbers in the door. But we try to be very selective. We want someone that will absolutely represent our brand and our company and make us proud, and someone that wants to be here because they want to be part of the culture, not because they're desperate for a paycheck. And it takes a while, I think, to have that conversation with a prospective driver. And so we spend a lot of time on the phone with them. We really encourage them to come into the office and spend time with us here. Love it when they'll come in and take a tour of our facilities, talk to people. It's an open door policy here. It's an open environment, office environment, so they can pop down and talk to a prospective fleet manager that they might work for. They can talk to the president of the company. They can come find me. So it's not just a marketing spin that our recruiters put on it. And I think that's just it's a huge part of our culture, but it's I think an important part of finding that ideal team player.
Okay, again, common sense. I like it. To me, that's common sense, but it does not happen in the industry. Like you said, it's just quick phone call, boom, check the thing. Yeah, you're hired. And then 3 weeks later, you figure out, well, he's not a good fit or she's not a good fit. And then everybody's out of money or you're just causing more problems.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you, the social media blows up every day now with something crazy going on with a non-domicile CDL driver. You had the major wreck in Florida that really kicked all this off and got the president and the secretary of transportation's now involved, and they should have been involved 20 years ago in vetting drivers and keeping up. We just had one here lately right next door to me in this county, had a 80-mile-an-hour 18-wheeler pass a school bus with the sign open, letting kids out on the shoulder at 80 miles an hour. The poor kid opened, the bus driver opened the door, and the kid literally had its foot hanging out when the truck just zoomed by. With everything that's going on with the non-domicile, just truck drivers in general, as you said earlier, tell you one story, then you do a little digging and you find out, like for instance, I know I've recruited for years. They won't now, I'll tell them, ASAP program. Hey, this is what we got. Okay, yeah, no, never been on it. No problem. And then you do 5 minutes of digging and you figure out, yeah, he's had a DUI, he's been in the program, and you can't hire him. What do you think about a system to actually get to know and verify these drivers so not only you, the carrier, but the broker or your customer actually knows who's bringing their product, who's representing you or them on the road?
You've brought light to, I think, a very important subject and a very sensitive subject for all of us in the industry within the last year or two. I mean, for those of us in the business, it's been an important topic for a long time. It's not anything new. But let me be super clear. Our industry has never been safer and never had better professional drivers on the highway than we do today. The sensationalization of the media about specifics, one-off things is what gets the headline. Yes, shouldn't happen. It's horrible. It's tragic when it does happen. Justin, I totally support what you're saying is the laws have been in place for a long time. Let's just enforce them. Okay. Let's be accountable. Let's build the type of workforce for this industry that it deserves. And that's just the highest caliber people we can bring in. We have a great industry. We have great professions. They're listening to your show frequently. Those are the professional drivers, I think, that we all admire and love to work with. Do we have challenges? Absolutely, every day. Have we made some mistakes along the way? Absolutely. But safety, it continues to be foremost on every owner's mind, every leader's mind throughout the trucking industry. And so we're going to do everything we can to keep that in front of all of us and in front of the motoring public. We're very conscious that we share the highways with our families. And I haven't met a driver yet that didn't want to make sure he or she came home safely to their family, and that everybody they share the highway with comes home safely to their family. So with that, accountability on how we follow the rules that are in place is going to be really important. So I think that's going to be paramount. We need to make sure that we have the best quality folks, the best training programs. There's no shortcut to doing a good job. Okay.
Right.
So I love the fact that we're really honing in on a number of training programs that may not be meeting the standards that we expect. So yeah, let's find them, let's single them out. Hats off to the FMCSA folks who have done a great job of an audit process to do that. They've got more to do. It's a multi-year project. It's not going to happen overnight, but let's support that effort. And that's kind of what we're doing. So I hope I was able to address a number of the things that you brought up, Justin, and happy to follow up with anything that I may have missed.
I think you hit it. Something that I wanted to touch on for these drivers, and I think a lot of what Justin's, look, I think that you run a great operation. You run an operation that's been around for quite some time, and you treat your drivers right, and you follow all the safety standards, the processing. I'm sure you have a well-established checklist to bring on these guys and make the right decision before you hire. There are so many companies out there right now, though, that part of there's a lot of problems here because you have drivers who are always looking for someplace where the grass is greener. In a lot of situations, they puddle jump is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
And then you have carriers who are just wanting numbers, who don't follow the safety standards, who have, in their minds, they want to get on the driver as quickly as possible. They're going to cut corners. It doesn't do the drivers any favors. It doesn't do their operation any favors. So what do you say to those drivers when they are looking for the next best thing? They are hearing from their buddy that they're making $7,000 a week at, XYZ company. And and then 6 weeks later, they're not happy and they haven't made a paycheck in 12 weeks. What do you say to those guys?
Yeah, we have those conversations more often than we'd like to have, frankly, but because they do look over the fence. But our message is, I think, is pretty clear. Is first of all, we let them know that there's a reason someone's offering this ridiculously high wage scale. And it's likely because the freight isn't as plentiful and the culture is not nearly as solid as ours. And that's hard to get through to some folks, but there's always a trade-off. Companies that are paying much higher rates often have other deficiencies that they're trying to compensate for. I get that. That's not who we are as a company. We try to stay focused on what we can do well and reasonably. That's a tough one, but that's number one. And just try to remind them that it's just how do you want to feel about yourself when you come home on the weekend, when you come home, you stop your load during the week, whatever. How do you want to feel about yourself and the work you're doing and the reward that you personally want out of your career? And we think we can give people just a great experience for that.
With you being a second generation, what are you looking to do, say, next 10 years, 15 years, what's the goal? Do you have a succession plan with the next family member? If you do, what
You
qualities?
saying that he looks old, Justin? You saying
No, no. Well, he's the CEO, so he's
he's probably
always,
younger than us.
well, I don't know, I'm pretty old myself. But what are you looking for in the next, say 10 years? And what the main reason why I ask is, even if you're going to work another 20 years, your your common sense approach is very refreshing to me. I come from the owner operator world where it's just push, 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 don't care. You either stay or go. And it's refreshing to know that you're just normal. And I want to to see how you approach the next 10 years with that. Plus, with your children, if you do have a child that wants to do it, how do you explain to them with all the new, bells and whistles out there of products to do different things that, hey, just a simple conversation or your door being open really works. I mean, I know, the kids can see that, but it's like when life, the cell phones came into our life, and yes, it's made life easier for a lot of things, but yet it's made certain things a lot more difficult. It's kind of what I was trying to mean.
Yeah. Well, Justin, you do a great job of getting to just the heart of things. And I spend more time in my day as CEO on family matters and family ownership matters than I probably do on how to lead people inside the trucking business. When I started this role about 13 years ago, succession planning was already on my mind. I'd had careers outside of trucking. I came into this, and my parents were pretty clear. They're founders. They want to see it continue. They get it if it doesn't, but they really felt like it was important to keep it going, and so do the families that work for us. I think the most important thing I can do in my job is to assure a successful transition to the next generation of leaders. In fact, part of what I do in my executive life is I facilitate the Missouri Trucking Leadership Forum, which kind of helps train the next generation of trucking leaders in Missouri. We're in our second class. We had 13 people in our first class. We have 10 in the current class. I love doing it. It helps, and I think that's part of our obligation as leaders, is to help bring the next generation along. I'm doing that with family members and non-family members. And our oldest son, Andrew, is in the business. He's been in the business for 12 years. He has the passion for it. He loves it. He's doing a number of things inside the business to kind of understand kind of the ebbs and flows of not only leadership but trucking. And I'm the CEO, but I'm not the president. The president of our company is a lady, Laura Gates. She's been with us for 26 years in finance roles, human resources roles. She has all the company reporting to her now, with the exception of finance and maintenance. And so I am absolutely thinking about how do we successfully transition this to the next generation. And the hardest part of that is me figuring out how I can let go.
Before we close out here, talk about the corporate side of this, and what you tell your team, especially when it comes to developing relationships with these drivers, what you tell your dispatchers. We have a lot of dispatchers who listen, how they relate to drivers, and some of them get very frustrated, and others claim that they have drivers that they've had for years, and they've got solid relationships in place, and no matter where that dispatcher goes. And this is what I used to tell my dispatchers when I had a trucking company, is that driver should not want to leave you. My dispatchers were set up to have a group of drivers that they worked with, and the goal is for if that dispatcher leaves, that driver's calling to find out where that dispatcher's going. And so talk about that. What do you talk to your team, your internal team about? Like, because turnover is a big problem in our industry.
Well, I think you're spot on, John, with kind of looking at that relationship in your company and all, and we think that we call them fleet managers. Others companies, they're driver managers, but it's our fleet managers. They own that relationship with their team of drivers. That's probably the most important relationship in the company, is the driver and the fleet manager. So we spend a lot of time with our fleet managers, helping them understand grace, helping them understand empathy, helping them be good listeners. And oftentimes that's all you have to do is listen. And certainly I've learned that in my roles as a
Yeah, my dad told me that he took retirement and then decided he was bored and was like, "Can I dispatch for you?" And I was like, you can do whatever you want to do. I'll give you a phone. And that's what he enjoyed most, was just listening to drivers. And he almost became like a counselor to them. But they loved working with him. He had no clue about freight, no clue about what was a good lane, no clue about what the rates were, but they loved working with him. And basically anything he suggested, they would do.
So that's the magic of personalities that you try to find for those roles, and you try to groom. But at the same time, we're encouraging all those things in a fleet manager. We're also asking them to hold their drivers accountable, running when they're supposed to run, setting good PATs, okay, being safe, optimizing. I've used this word optimize so much in the last couple of years that I'm kind of sick of it, but it's probably still the right word. But how do we be the most efficient? Are you getting the best fuel mileage you should be getting? And how we doing with customer service? So our fleet managers have a huge responsibility in the company. And boy, we ask a lot of it, because they have to have that empathetic side, but they also have to have that kind of hard charging side. Man, we've got some objectives we've got to meet. We've got to keep that truck moving, as many hours as a day as it can, to be as productive as it possibly can. And so my hat's off to the team of fleet managers, not only at Transland, but across the country, that are doing this job. And I wish we had your dad working for us, John. And I'm sure all of us wish we had someone had that kind of ability to relate, because that's the beauty. And when you see a fleet manager that can do that, man, you try to hang on to them as long as you can.
Well, I want to touch on one thing that you said a minute ago about you doing the leadership programs for the state, in the state of Missouri. Could you just talk about that a little bit, plug it a little bit, so maybe somebody out there in the Missouri area would like to get in the next set of classes? And then, let us know how to reach you, how to reach Transland, in case, somebody that's listening is looking for a job.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for that opportunity. So, Missouri Trucking Association has always had a kind of a next gen program, next generation. And we just kind of modified that a little bit and put kind of a curriculum to it. Not only is it how to be a good steward with the legislature and learn how the Capitol and state Capitol works in Jefferson City, learn how things work in Washington, D.C. And we actually take trips. We visit with our elected officials, but we also talk about how to be a good manager, how to relate to people, your office, how to be an ideal team player, how to ask the good questions why, how to tell your team how to be why. We do a project around how to go from good to great, the book from Jim Collins. And so it's a structured environment that we facilitate. Not only does Missouri do this, but we consulted a little bit with Louisiana. So the Louisiana Trucking Association has a similar program. I know Indiana has one. I believe Iowa and Arkansas have them. My guess is they're pretty prevalent throughout.
Yeah, I think just about every state has them.
Yeah, I think so. So I would encourage any of your audience to if they're interested, take a look at what their state trucking association is doing in that regard, and yeah, learn more about it, because it's if you want to have a career in trucking, and if you want to be if you want to grow in your current role with your company, this is a great way to get some experience to do that.
That's great advice. And tell us about Transland. Tell us how drivers can find you. Tell us, maybe there's some individuals in Missouri that are looking for a fleet manager opportunity, or looking to get involved with a trucking company. Maybe they're just looking for a change. Tell them how they can find you.
Well, thank you for that opportunity, for sure. DriveTransland.com, common spellings, DriveTransland.com. Check us out on the web. We've got some really cool Instagram pieces. We've got a Facebook page. I'm told we're even on TikTok. You won't find me doing that, but I'm sure a lot of people are. So
we're just getting on TikTok ourselves. We're trying to figure that out.
Yeah, but we would love to have a chance to talk to anyone that just wants to know more about our company. Coming down I-44 or up US 65, and you want to visit with us, come in, have a cup of coffee, and let's talk trucking.
And that's drivetransland.com, correct?
Correct.
All right. Well, Justin, why don't you take us out and introduce our sponsors? Tell them thank you for supporting our show.
Most definitely can do that. Yeah, this episode is supported by Gray Cross. That's graycross.org, nonprofit dedicated to helping trucking families in need, or in a crisis. They're always there to help, with funerals, doctor bills, dinners, whatever's needed. Gray Cross tries to step in. So if you can donate $1, $5, $10, $100, every dollar is appreciated. That's graycross.org. And then, of course, we want to thank ReadyApp. ReadyApp is the driver onboarding and verification program built for the modern trucking company. ReadyApp helps carriers streamline onboarding, reduce friction for drivers, and create more transparent hiring. There's a lot of updates with ReadyApp coming. We talk about it all the time on here. We got driver passport, driver scores, broker verification, load board. A lot of big things are coming in the next few months for ReadyApp. So go check it out. If you're a driver, do one profile application, and that's all you ever have to do. That's ready-app.com.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin. Mark, we really appreciate your time and perspective today. There's a lot of experience behind what you've built at Transland, and I think our audience got a ton of value from this show. To everyone listening, if you're a driver, a carrier, or a broker, the future of this industry is going to come down to trust, transparency, and how we connect the right people with the right opportunities. So visit drivetransland.com, and we'll see you next time on Behind the Wheelhouse. Drive safe, everyone.